Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sky McCracken. I'm senior pastor here at First Methodist downtown Jackson. We're glad to have you here. Glad to host our First Friday Forums as we celebrate our Bicentennial. I actually, as we prepare to think about sports in our area, I was a high school and college basketball and baseball official for a little over 30 years. And I actually grew up in Martin and lived in at least 3 states and officiated, I think, in 17. So I know both at a local level as well as at a collegiate level how important sports are and how they shape our community life. And we think about folks that were our coaches. We think about folks who came out of Jackson who are athletes. We think about some of our young folks as we see them do well in high school and college and beyond. And sports and athletics are one of the ways that a community gets to be unified. So look forward to today and hearing about some of our history and celebrating some of our lineage here in our midst. If you would, let us pray. Gracious God, we are thankful for this day. We are thankful for this season that's coming upon us as we prepare for summer. Thankful for the gift of community that you give us. And as we celebrate that community and as we gather together for a meal, may our fellowship and our meal bless our bodies and souls. In the name of the risen Christ, amen. Elaine?
Thank you, Sky. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you with us today as we gather once again on the first. It's kind of not the first Friday, but with the holidays coming through, we had to kind of make some changes midstream. I'm Elaine Christian, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Jackson-Madison County Bicentennial Commission. And boy, are we having fun. And boy, can we see light at the end of the tunnel. Looking forward to August. But these First Friday forums have just been amazing. We've enjoyed every one of them, and they've each been so unique. But we're, of course, gathered together to celebrate the Jackson-Madison County Bicentennial, 200 years of progress in our community, and always looking at it from the aspect of yesterday, celebrating our progress and success, today, what's happening in our community, and then even more important, looking forward to the future. I'd like to recognize we have Jimmy Harris. Mayor Harris is with us today. Jimmy Eldridge, who's on our election commission, former representative. Jillian Weiser, candidate for sheriff. And I don't know if we have any other elected officials. We do, Trey Cleek, who, oh my gosh, Trey Cleek is a county commissioner. Sorry about that, Trey. Dr. Newman on the school board, thank you. But I also want to ask Judge Blake Anderson. Y'all, thank you for helping me out today. If you're on the Bicentennial Commission Board, if you would please stand. I want to recognize these individuals. We have Trey Cleek, we have Dr. Newman, we have Gail Gilbert, Anita K. Archer, Judy Renshaw, Leanne Bentley. It's hours and hours and hours each month since August of 2020, but we're loving it and enjoying it. Direct your attention to the banner in the center, our keynote, our founders' legacy sponsors, City of Jackson, Madison County, Jackson Energy Authority, JEA, and West Tennessee Healthcare, as well as many of you in this room. And we appreciate the investment in this project, and all of our events, because of the sponsorships that we have received, are being offered to the community free of charge. We also have legacy projects that will go on and last in the community throughout after this big celebration, the year-long celebration is concluded. Before we move into some of the body of the program, I want everyone to get an update. Trey, if you'd go ahead and come forward. Of course, everyone saw on the news and everybody knew how excited we were about opening the time capsule. And we had 100 or so folks that came out to join us, and it was quite exciting. But, you know, you can't always control what happens. But anyway, Trey is chair of the Time Capsule Committee. And Trey, would you just give us a quick update?
Sure. Okay, so thank you. I do want to take a quick opportunity to go off topic just for a second while I have the mic and the Madison County Hall of Fame sports folks are here. Us offensive linemen in high school don't get a lot of recognition, so look into seeing some of those guys that never got to actually touch the football. But The 1984 Porter Cable T-ball team, I was a phenom. I'm just letting y'all know. So just you might want to look into my record there. But no, getting to the time capsule, it was, we've been planning this Bicentennial for over a year now. And the only thing that we had to go on for the capsule that was buried 50 years ago was the location. Thankfully, some folks, Construction Products Incorporated and Mary Jo Middlebrooks, her parents, paid for a marker and a base to be placed over the top so that we knew where it was at. Once we started, and on that marker it said open on June 1st, 2022. And so, of course, that's what we did. Once we started digging, we discovered that it was a 6,500-pound burial vault that was made out of concrete. And ultimately, the city, who I cannot brag enough on Kirk Smith and his team and their expert operators of their heavy machinery. They had to bring in the biggest backhoe that they had, Tonka toys for real life. They got that thing out of there, and we got it on a trailer. This is the saga. After we got it excavated out, we loaded it on a trailer, and you would think, hey, we're just moving it from Muse Park to Jackson State. Jackson State had volunteered to provide us with a climate control facility to catalog the stuff. Well, that thing was so heavy that it broke the trailer trying to get from 1 mile from Muse Park to Jackson State, that we had to secure it overnight in a city facility that happened to be halfway between Muse Park and Jackson State. So we were blessed with that. And we got the trailer fixed. That next morning, we had feared that there was some damage and possibly some water contamination. So we started by contacting the company that actually sells those vaults, and they sent some technicians out, and they drilled a hole, and sure enough, roughly 200 gallons of water was drained out of it, and they helped and assisted us yesterday in taking the top off. And so it's our best guess that about 95% of the stuff that was inside that capsule was actually some form of paper document or paper product, and all of that, after decades of sitting in water, was unfortunately destroyed. We have been working yesterday, and we pivoted because we're dealing with a drying situation and mildew, and we're using one of the city facilities that was made available to us right now to dry it out. But we have gotten all of the contents out of that box. We do have some light. There are going to be some things that we're going to be able to display in the public. Probably won't go up on Monday like we intended, but there will be some things that we've been able to identify. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the items in there were destroyed by the moisture over the years. The bright note, let me say this, the bright note is twofold. We are going to salvage some things, but we're going to learn from the mistakes. As we go through this process of burying our time capsule, we will be much more diligent and not repeat those same things that led to this situation. We've got a great team headed by really technical engineering people that work for Construction Products Incorporated, dealing with advancements in the concrete industry. Folks from Williams Steel that are going to help with constructing a steel purpose-built time capsule. And folks from SM Lawrence that are just going to bring some wisdom and years on helping us design and implement a time capsule that won't fail, so that in 2072, those contents will be pristine for the folks of the community to see how we're doing here today in Jackson. On the last note, I will say we are accepting submissions. So if you have an idea of an item or something that represents Jackson-Madison County as it stands today, submit that to us in our various social media pages, website, jacksonmadison200.com. We're going to be taking submissions for the time capsule until July 31st. We're going to bury the time capsule August 13th in the big fanfare of the finale that day. But until July 31st, that's when we're going to cut off the submissions for ideas of inclusion and ideas for the time capsule. I encourage all of y'all to reach out to the time capsule committee via social media, or any of the board members that just stood up, please reach out to them and they can get you in contact with me and my committee. And with that, I really appreciate the time. And when we know more about when we'll display the recovered contents, that will definitely be made available to everybody. Y'all will find it out, and we're still going to plan on doing that in some form or fashion in the foyer of City Hall. Thanks.
Thank you, Trey. I just felt like it was important, and we have been trying to be so transparent about this process, and of course, obviously, very disappointed with the outcome. But as Trey did mention, there are some things that we are going to be able to do to honor the memory of those that had items in the time capsule. But we're looking toward the future, trying to design something that will, in 2072, as Trey said, will be workable. Events. We have events going like crazy. So Judy Renshaw always prepares the calendar of events that they're on your table. We would encourage you to come. Tomorrow we'll be out at Denmark with one of our Madison Heritage Days. And we're continuing the theme of sports and leisure this month. Athletics, sports, and leisure. And that's what's been so fun, is to delve into the history of these monthly themes. And of course, I always want to put in the plug for our finale. We are so excited. August 12th is our choir. We do have choir forms. We're still in the process of recruiting. We're in the process of recruiting individuals to join the choir and participate on the August 12th program. There's forms up here, and we are still looking for those of you that are want to participate. It's not an audition. We just want a broad section of citizens of Jackson-Madison County to participate. And then on Saturday, August the 13th, is just a full day, starting with a parade in downtown Jackson, burying the new time capsule, and then that evening heading out to the ballpark, where we'll be opened by Lolo, and the Commodores are going to bring the house down, brick house, eventually get everybody up off their feet and dancing, followed by fireworks. We have two special guests with us today. If you would stand, we have Dennis Bastian and Steve DeSalvo, who represent the ballpark. They're with the Prospect League and Play Ball Jackson. They're going to be hosting us on the 13th of August, and we're so glad to have you here. It's very appropriate for you to be here at the sports theme. So, Gail, thanks for bringing them in. We are still looking for volunteers. We have lots of opportunities, especially for the evening, the 13th evening. We've got a lot going on, and we'd love to have some additional help. The next First Friday Forum will be July the 8th, and we are going to have J.R. Ross. So the month of July is actually transportation, but as y'all remember, we had the Omicron surge in January when J.R. was going to speak, and so we've invited him back. So that will be here in this room, and we're glad to have J.R., and he'll be speaking on health care. We always want to thank the church and their staff. Sky, thank you so much. We appreciate Robert and Linda and Jan and all the people that help. We're so glad Thomas is here from JEA. This is always recorded and replayed on E+6. I would like to recognize a group that did our decorations today. Miss Tina Barnett, where are you? The ladies with the Jackson Women's Club. We thank you so much for doing the decorations today, and we are really proud to have them as a sponsor. And ladies and gentlemen, this organization was founded in 1890. The ladies were active in 1890, and they have been doing wonderful things in the community ever since. They were the General Federation of Women's Club, and it was organized by Miss Ann Ray Dabney, and they've been active here in Jackson since 1908. And they're also a sponsor of the Bicentennial, and we appreciate that so much. So we appreciate what you did for us today. Today's sponsor is Cowett Reese Sargent, and Jonathan, if you would come up and just share. We couldn't do this without our sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. So they are the sponsor for today's program, and it's Jonathan Nadaski. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you for the Bicentennial Committee for letting us sponsor this event, and just one of the many events. And while it's not the first Friday, it is the first Friday of the month. So I did thought I'd point that out. For those of you who don't know, we are Cowett Reese Sargent CPAs. We're a public accounting firm. We were founded in 1975. Started as a smaller firm, and just through the years have grown, absorbing other companies and other firms. And so we have offices all across West Tennessee. but we have clients all across the United States. So we help everybody from California to Maine and Florida. So, and while we serve a variety of small business clients, we kind of specialize in the agricultural, the construction, as well as just the professional services industries. So we provide tax and advisory, compliance and advice. So we kind of specialize in those industries, though. In addition, we also provide tax and audit services. The audit services including just full-on audits as well as reviews, just helping people make sure they're in compliance with the government, because we all like the government. So just to emphasize, though, our audit is primarily focused on the government and non-for-profit and the nonprofit sides. So I'd like to thank Cody and Sarah for being here with me, just to hear at the being representing of the Cavalry Sergeant, and I just want to again thank you for the Bicentennial Committee for allowing us to be here. So.
Good job. Thank you so much. Well, we'll go ahead and get into the program today. I did want to recognize the members at this table. If you're on the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame board or organization, would you please stand? We want to recognize you. I would let you know, I was actually on that board back in the 90s, and Mr. Billy Scrivener was someone I've known virtually all my life, and he recruited me, and I really enjoyed it. And I'll take a side note also, I'm a coach's kid, so I grew up in a gym, and we ate, lived, and breathed whatever sports we were following. My dad was a basketball coach, and it was just a lot of fun. But it's so, what an impact sports makes on character, what it makes on the development of our youth and on into the future. And so we appreciate the organization and the fact that you recognize the successful athletes. We have some really amazing athletes that have come out of Jackson-Madison County. But our speakers today are no strangers to anyone in the room. We have Dan Morris and Dave Thomas. I'll introduce Dan, and I think, Dan, you're going to start. But Dan grew up in Ashland City in Middle Tennessee, playing high school baseball and football. But his 41-year career as a writer and columnist for the Jackson Sun, he's recorded all these highs and lows and important stories for sports all these years, and he does serve on the Sports Hall of Fame board. And then Dave Thomas is with us with his wife Cheryl. We're so glad to have you. Dave grew up in Mayfield. He was a distance runner, also involved in sports communications for many years, 19 years in media, and then director of WNWS Talk Radio, Grace Media Group, and involved in this community, also involved with RIFA, and went to Lambeth. So we appreciate it. We're looking forward to this program. And Dan, if you would go ahead and come up. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for coming today. If you can't hear me in the back, just let me know sometime. Okay, let's see. When First Friday asked the Jackson-Madison County Sports Hall of Fame to present the history of Jackson sports, well, they pointed to the two oldest members and said, do it. So here we are, and we're thankful for the opportunity. All of your tables have copies of the latest Hall of Fame program that you can see that the Sports Hall of Fame has been around since 1986, and we've inducted 184 athletes at our annual banquets at the Civic Center, and we need your help with future nominations. Now let's see if this works. Beautiful. Okay, so the nomination forms are over here on the dessert table. That's a strategic place because I knew you'd be going back. Okay, and if you know someone you think will qualify and is deserving, then please let us know. And even if you don't have all of their information, you'll find the Hall's mailing address on that form. All right, I have about 25 minutes to cover 200 years of sports history. So here we go. The Hall of Fame board members, they seem certain that Dave and I have been around since Jackson was born 200 years ago, but that's not quite true. But ball games, have been with us since those days and long before. Most likely, the region's original sport was stickball, played by the Chickasaw Indians of this territory. Their game was similar to our game of lacrosse. The ball was usually a small rock wrapped tightly with deer skin, and the ball was placed in a leather pouch on the end of a 2-foot stick and hurled down the field. If you had the ball in your pouch and you touched the wooden pole at the end of the field, you scored points. This is a painting from the 1800s showing Indians playing stickball. It looks like chaos, and it was definitely rough. Obviously, those are the pins and mounds in the background. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Indians used stickball to keep peace between tribes. The game was used as a way to settle disputes among the tribes, but it also was a way to toughen young warriors for combat. And there was betting involved. The game was said to be the little brother of war. Obviously, the art of rock throwing still exists today. Fast forward to 1870, when this bird's eye view of a map of Jackson was drawn. Let's look at the lower right corner of this 1870 map. Okay, there's this sketch of the West Tennessee College, which became Union University. Now look at this close-up of the students playing on the campus. What are some of them holding? Looks like baseball bats. Okay, so we know baseball was in Jackson as early as 1870. Most likely taught to Confederate soldiers by captured Union forces. The game of baseball flourished in New York State in the 1840s and 50s, and those northern aggressors brought the game south during the Civil War. Here's a photo from a museum of a ball found on the battlefield soon after the Battle of Shiloh. So we know they were tossing in their down times in that terrible conflict. In Kevin McCann's 1999 book, Jackson Diamonds, he notes that by 1881, there were a few local amateur baseball clubs named the Reds, the Blues, the Lone Stars, and the Rough and Readies. The railroads sponsored several independent teams, but things got serious by the turn of the century. In 1903, Jackson had its first professional baseball team when it became one of the charter members in the Class D Kitty League, made up of teams from Kentucky, Illinois, and Tennessee. K-I-T, Kitty. Okay, a baseball park was built at Highland Park, now Conger Park. At the time, Highland Park was much bigger, extending all the way to Campbell Lake. The first professional home baseball game in Jackson was at Highland Park on November 27, 1903. For those mathematically challenged, that's 119 years ago last Friday. General admission was 10 cents. A grandstand seat was 25 cents. The Jackson team, named the Red Railroaders, they beat Cairo, Illinois Egyptians 13-4. This is a photo of the 1938 Jackson Generals. The most accomplished Jackson Kitty League player is right-handed pitcher Ellis Kinder. Team owner Hartel Gilliam brought Kinder to Jackson from Arkansas in 1939. Kinder finally made it to the major leagues in 1946 when he was 31 years old. He played for the St. Louis Browns, the Boston Red Sox, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Chicago White Sox. He pitched in 484 games and is the only pitcher in baseball history before 1960 with more than 100 wins and 100 saves. In 1949, he started 30 games for the Boston Red Sox, had a 23-6 record, and was named the American League Pitcher of the Year by Sporting News. In the offseason, he worked as a pipe fitter for the railroads in Jackson. He died on October 16, 1968, after heart surgery. He was 54, and he's buried in Jackson at Highland Memorial Gardens. I could spend the next 48 hours telling you about the history of Jackson baseball, Well, let's quickly mention some moments that brought Jackson national attention. In 1954, the Jackson Babe Ruth All-Star team, managed by Robert E. Richardson, finished runner-up at the Babe Ruth World Series in Washington, D.C. After winning the state championship, the team beat Birmingham, Ocala, Florida, to win the Southeast region in Atlanta. And at the World Series, they defeated Joplin, Missouri, and Seattle, Washington, before losing the title game to two-time defending champion Stamford, Connecticut, 2-0. That's a picture of that Babe Ruth team. In 1963, Union University won the NCAA Small College National Baseball Championship and was runner-up in '64. Those that remember Coach David Blackstock, he played on those teams. In 1974, the Jackson Little League All-Stars, managed by Will Dershmer, advanced to the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. It was a magical run. They beat Sparta, Clinton, Farragut, and Cedar Bluff to win the state title. In the Southeast region in Florida, they defeated Louisiana, Alabama, and North Carolina before edging Texas 1-0 for the championship. They became Jackson's first and only team to go to the Little League World Series. They played Venezuela in the first World Series game. It went one extra inning before the Venezuela pitcher hit a solo home run in the 7th inning to beat Jackson 1-0. Jackson pitcher Stan Weaver, let's see, yeah, he's in that picture. That pitcher, he allowed only 2 hits, struck out 12 in that game. 20 years later, Weaver's in the middle, the tallest one. 20 years later, he told me that the Venezuela pitcher, quote, must have been 26 years old. I think he had a mustache, he said. Jackson beat Canada 10-1 and Connecticut 14-2 to finish in 5th place. The team went to the White House and met President Gerald Ford, and most of them saw their first major league game that week in Baltimore. Jackson Little League received its charter in 1949 and had its own ballpark, Coleman Field, at the corner of North Royal Street and Lane Avenue. In 1956, that location became the home of Mary High School and then later Jackson Central Mary. So the Lions Club raised $40,000 and built Lions Field on Arlington Avenue for the Little League. It opened on June 6, 1957, and at times had crowds of 3,000 packed around that stadium. Before integration, the African American Little League teams played their games on a field at the end of Butler Street in Bemis. Several Dixie youth teams have played in World Series in the Southeast, and several have won. In 1996, Jackson State Community College went to the Junior College World Series in Grand Junction, Colorado. With 2 out in the top of the 9th, Coach Bubba Cates' team scored twice and beat 3rd-ranked Allegheny, Maryland 2-1 in the opening game. Known as the Generals at that time, Jackson State lost to defending champion Middle Georgia the next day, then lost a heartbreaker to Arizona Western 5-4. Most of Jackson State's players were from rural West Tennessee, and the experience was a thrill for all of them, and for me. In 2006, the West Tennessee Healthcare Sportsplex opened with 17 ball fields that draw thousands to Jackson, and Dave will say more about that. In 1998, Mayor Charles Farmer, Memphis Chicks President David Hirsch, and local bankers brought the Southern League to Jackson. We opened our new 6,000-seat Pringles Park and were the AA affiliate of the Chicago Cubs. Cubs slugger Sammy Sosa played 2 games there on a rehab assignment, and we hosted the Southern League All-Star Game, Home Run Derby, and Old Timers Game. Life was grand at the ballpark for about 6 years, capped by a Southern League championship in 2000. After that, it was a roller coaster experience despite 3 more league titles, and it all came to an end in 2020. It's too complicated and painful to rehash the demise of 20-plus years of AA baseball in Jackson today. So let's shift to football. Okay. Football traces its West Tennessee high school roots back to 1901. McKenzie had a team. The sport really began to flourish in 1912 when Jackson High and Brownsville joined the fun 110 years ago. Jackson High's first football team in 1912 had 5 shutouts in 5 games. It played to a scoreless tie in its opening game against Trenton. Then it shut out Brownsville twice, beat Trenton 6-0, and stopped Corinth, Mississippi 31-0. All right, the 1913 Jackson High School Annual had an official yell, and I know you want me to help you say it. All right, here we go. You ready? Rock-a-chicka boom, rock-a-chicka boom, rock-a-chicka, boom, boom, boom. Rip-rah, flirteen, seniors, 1913. I didn't hear many of you helping me. All right. Jackson High was dominant for years, and its original mascot was the Yellow Jackets. But in 1931, when Coach Turry Ullman came to town from the University of Wisconsin, that soon changed. His Jackets won 2 games in 1932 and finished 5-1 with 4 ties in 1933. So he changed the team mascot to the Golden Bears in 1934 and promptly shut out all 10 opponents, outscoring them 197-0 that season. Oh my. One of Ullman's best teams came in 1939 when Jackson finished 12-0, shut out 9 teams, and outscored opponents 388-20. The team's closest challenge came in the season finale when the Bears beat a powerful Chicago-Austin team 7-6 in what the Jackson Sun reported as probably the most sensational game ever played at Rothrock Field. It was billed as the North-South Championship. More than 5,000 saw the game. Box seats sold for $1.50, other tickets were $1, and the team's reward for winning the game was a trip to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. He treated their teams right back then, didn't he? A year before, in 1938, Jackson's Rothrock Stadium opened with much fanfare on September 23. The American Legion Band and Sons of the Legion Drum and Fife Corps led a parade from the Madison County Courthouse to the stadium there on Hayes Avenue across from Union University's old campus in East Jackson. Originally built for $40,000, the stadium was named for Judge Tom Rothrock, a civic leader and active football booster at both Union University and Jackson High. Union had a football team from the early 1900s until 1952. In the first game played at Rothrock Stadium, Jackson's Golden Bears demolished Savannah 100-0. The next day, a crowd of 3,000 saw Union lose to Southwestern, now Rhodes College, 47-0. The next day's Jackson Sun had a front-page headline that would soon consume our nation's interest. It read, "Is Hitler bluffing, or does he intend to fight if necessary?" Rothrock Stadium was renamed the new Lane Field at a dedication ceremony October 16, 2010. Lane College, which began playing football and other sports in the late 1920s, plays its home football games on this field and has consistently been competitive in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. Jackson High's 1963 and 64 teams, coached by Tom Fan, held the state's mythical #1 ranking. That was before state playoffs started in 1969. Consolidation brought Mary High and Jackson High together in 1970 to form Jackson Central Mary. Coach Richard Ross's 1976 Jackson Central Mary Cougars were 12-0 and ranked #1 in the state in Class AAA when they played for the state title on Thanksgiving Day, November 25th. They lost to Bradley Central 50-48 in 3 overtimes at Middle Tennessee State University in front of nearly 9,000 fans. Tied 28-28 at the end of regulation. Bradley Central won on a trick play. It was arguably the greatest state championship game on record at the time. The 98 points remained the most points scored in a state title game for 39 years, until Brentwood Academy beat NBA 56-55 in 2 overtimes in 2015. Coach Ross had promised to have his head shaved if the Cougars made it to the championship game. He made good on that promise just before kickoff. I remember he put a stocking cap on, it was so cold. Ross's 1979 unbeaten Cougars also lost the state title game in front of 5,000 at Rothrock Stadium against Oak Ridge, 39-28. Jackson Christian is the only Jackson high school to win a TSSAA football state championship. That came in 2006. They're cheering at that back there. When the Eagles defeated Friendship Christian of Lebanon, 1913, in the Class 1A title. In 1994, Lambeth University had its finest football team and advanced to the NAIA Division II National Semifinals. In the quarterfinals, at Hardin-Simmons in Abilene, Texas, the two teams scored 8 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone. Think about that. Coach Vic Wallace's Lambeth Eagles survived 57-54 behind 297 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns by All-America running back JoJo Jones. Quarterback Corey Hill accounted for 4 other touchdowns. The next week, Lambeth went to Pennsylvania. The Eagles held a Friday night practice at the University of Pittsburgh Stadium and got a surprise pep talk from Pittsburgh coach Johnny Majors, who was formerly at Tennessee. That's Majors on the left and Coach Wallace on the right. The next day, in a cold rain with mud ankle deep, Lambeth's quick team was no match for a bigger Westminster College team that depended on its power and won 46-6. Okay, let's move to basketball. In 1990, Mayor Farmer and Chuck Clark helped bring the city's most notable basketball venture to Oman Arena. That was the NAIA Women's National Basketball Tournament that drew thousands to Jackson. It began as a 16-team tournament, but soon changed to a 32-team format. It was standing room only, with 6,000 screaming fans whenever Union University played in the semifinals or finals. Raise your hand if you ever went to one of those games. I figured. Hundreds of volunteers helped pull off one of the nation's best collegiate events. Southwestern Oklahoma State won the first Jackson tournament in 1990. Oman Arena went bonkers in 1998 when Union, coached by David Blackstock, won its first NAIA championship. The Lady Bulldogs added NAIA titles in 2005, 6, 9, and 10. But Lambeth University's Lady Eagles earned the spotlight in 2007, beating Union in the semifinals 66-64 before defeating Cumberland, Tennessee for the championship. The last NAIA tournament in Oman was 2011, when Azusa Pacific, California beat Union for the title. Union also won an NCAA Division II national championship in 2014. Union coach Mark Campbell earned 600 wins, faster than any coach in all of college basketball, all divisions, men or women, and he's closing in on 700 victories. Oman Arena, previously named Jackson Coliseum and built in 1968, has enough sports history to warrant its own presentation. Jackson's NAIA attendance drew national attention through ESPN and led to the State Farm Basketball Tip-Off Classic being played at Oman. In the first Classic on November 21, 1993, Tennessee coach Pat Head Summit earned her 500th career victory with an 80-45 rout of Ohio State. The Boston Celtics played an exhibition game at Oman Arena, and it was host to the Harlem Globetrotters and several pro and semi-pro basketball contests. The pro bull riding circuit still comes to Oman, and the high school and college basketball is still played there. And let's not forget the West Tennessee Madisons, who have won 3 national basketball championships in the senior games 2007, 2019, and 2022. Last month at the Nationals in Florida, player coach Jody Parrish, center Rita Carmichael, who was here, and the Madisons beat Arizona, Louisiana, Connecticut, and Texas to win the Nationals for ages 70-74. Sorry, am I supposed to mention that? No sport has put Jackson in the national spotlight quite like amateur boxing. Hall of Fame boxing coach Rayford Collins with the Jackson Boxing Club was a sensation for years. The major breakthrough came in 1978 at the National Golden Gloves Tournament in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Jackie Beard, a 119-pound bantamweight, defeated Rocky Lockridge of Las Vegas to give Jackson its first National Golden Gloves boxing champion. Rayford was so excited that he hoisted Jackie onto his shoulders, paraded him around the outside of the boxing ring while Jackie clutched the championship trophy. That's one of my favorite pictures. That same night, Jackson's Donald Bowers won the 156-pound light middleweight championship. That success vaulted Rayford and the Jackson Boxing Club into the national spotlight. Jackie and Donald kept winning along with other JBC boxers, and national TV loved them. ABC sent a crew to Jackson to produce a feature on the boxing club, and ABC commentator Keith Jackson enjoyed interviewing Jackie. In 1980, Rayford was named the National AAU Coach of the Year and was head coach for the AAU Olympic boxing trials. But Rayford and Jackie Beard, who won at the trials to qualify for the Olympic Games, were devastated when President Jimmy Carter decided to boycott the 1980 Olympics in protest of the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. Rayford coached winning international teams throughout the 1990s, and many of his Jackson boxers were on those teams. Rayford's widow, Rhonda Collins, is here today. Raise your hand. Jackson's biggest splash on the national golf scene came from an unlikely source. Danny Green, a JCM grad and a self-taught golfer who never had a golf lesson, was runner-up in the U.S. Amateur Tournament in 1989. He won 7 Tennessee Amateur Player of the Year awards, won the U.S. Mid-Amateur, and played in the Masters Tournament. He's the only Tennessean to play on 2 Walker Cup teams. Jackson's most accomplished tennis player is 1980 Jackson Central Mary graduate Fran Chandler. She was named the University of Mississippi Female Athlete of the Year in 1984 and has won 3 national championships and finished second 10 times in her age groups. She has numerous international victories and continues to compete and win consistently. Jackson has produced more than 20 professional athletes, but I don't have time to name them all in this presentation. I believe all of them are in our Sports Hall of Fame. I decided to let the most famous one represent them all. That would be Ed Too Tall Jones, who played 15 football seasons at left defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys and never missed a game. He played basketball at Mary High School in Jackson and at Tennessee State University. But TSU coach John Merritt convinced him to play football, and the rest is history. Too Tall was the #1 pick in the 1974 NFL draft out of Tennessee State. He was the first player from a historically black college to go that high in the draft. He got his famous nickname at his first college football practice when a teammate saw how short his football pants were and said, "Man, you're too tall to play football." At 6'9", he towered over many opponents and was All-Pro 3 times. He played in 3 Super Bowls and helped win Super Bowl 12 over Denver. He is still the 5th leading tackler in Cowboys history, and he lives outside Dallas. He has sponsored a scholarship through the Jackson Sports Hall of Fame the past 5 years. As far as Madison County high schools go, I could spend 2 days talking about their sports history. The first mention I could find of a Madison County school playing in a state tournament was the 1928 Girls State Basketball Tournament in Memphis. Jackson High and Huntersville played in that tournament. This is a photo of a 1912 Jackson High club team. They call themselves the Big Heads. Rita, you all need to wear ribbons in your hair when you play. I researched the Tennessee Secondary School Athletic Association database and counted the number of state championships each school has won, including team and individual titles. according to the TSSAA, the state's governing body of high school sports. Jackson Central Mary's Cougars have 12 state championships, including 10 in track and field, and the 1996 Class AAA girls basketball crown. Jackson Christian's Eagles have 4 titles, 2 baseball, 1 football, and 1 tennis. The old Jackson High had 2 titles, boys golf in '65 and boys mile relay in '63. And of course, they had the 2 mythical football championships in '63 and '64 before state playoffs began. Northside's Indians have 2 state titles, girls golf in '94 and girls long jump in 2009. Southside Hawks have 10 championships, including the Class AA boys basketball crown in 2014 and 9 track and field titles. Jabari Greer, who played defensive back for Tennessee, the Buffalo Bills, and the New Orleans Saints, has 7 of Southside's 9 track and field championships. Liberty Tech has 6 titles, 3 for boys basketball. Madison Academic has 15 championships, 12 in track and field. Old Hickory Academy had 2 titles in girls track and field. Trinity Christian Academy has 13 state crowns, including girls basketball in 2020 and 4 softball championships. University School of Jackson has 42 state championships, including 5 baseball, 14 boys tennis, and 5 girls tennis titles. Well, I better stop and turn it over to Dave so he can talk about the present and the future of Jackson sports. I want to thank Jack Wood and Evelyn Kill at Jackson-Madison County Library for helping me with my research, and I'll leave you with this reminder. We can't all be state champs, but most of us can throw rocks.
I was just beginning to get comfortable with that, and then all of a sudden it's my turn. I want to thank the Bicentennial Committee for this invitation. I'm truly flattered and honored. Flattered the committee asked me to participate and honored to share the same podium with Dan Morris. Dan, I can assure you I enjoyed your presentation very much. I enjoyed it so much, I'd already had it in my notes from the past few weeks that I enjoyed it. So, but having been a resident in Jackson since 1974, you returned me to a very special time. More than a few events you discussed, I either attended or covered the events as well. 2 of the events that I did cover were in 1976 and 1979 when JCM played for state football titles. I had the privilege of serving as Tom Britt's color commentator and statistician. Tom is sitting right over here for high school football games from '75 into 1992 at DXI Radio, where he was the sports director and handled play-by-play during high school football season. And Tom, when Dan was talking to you were thinking the same thing I was. It was incredible. When I think of what the future holds for sports in Jackson-Madison County, I would like to step back to 1972 for just one moment. Jackson-Madison County held its sesquicentennial, and the Summer Games and the Olympics were being held in West Germany, in Munich in West Germany. I do know that the sesquicentennial had events and celebrations, but I don't know if they had a banquet or a luncheon where someone talked about the past, present, and future of sports in Jackson-Madison County. If they had, I doubt very seriously that someone would have said in the future we will have a 6,000 seat, well, wrong one, Robert, but a 6,000 seat minor league baseball stadium off the interstate and a 17-field sportsplex next door where youth baseball and softball teams from cities and states throughout the country would visit to participate in tournaments several weekends each year. To me, the reason why, in 1972 with the Olympics, there were 21 sports. There were 195 events. Fast forward to last year, the Olympics were held in 2021 because COVID got it in 2020. But last year there were 33 events, 33 events, 33 sports, 339 events. Now, the reason why these events such as skateboarding, surfing, badminton and BMX motocross bicycle racing became so popular is because they became popular throughout the world. As for the future of sports in Jackson-Madison County, one thing we can say is that minor league baseball returns to the ballpark at Jackson when Jackson's entry in the Prospect League takes the field in 2023. And surely, Dennis, where are you? When the Jackson, what are they going to be, the Suede Sox? Okay. That was the name I submitted, and I didn't see it on the. But when piecing this presentation together, I asked more than a few people what new sports we might see at the high school and college level locally. And most of the time, the answer I received was, how can we possibly know, or who is to say? Some of the people were in this room that I asked. But the landscape is getting ready to change in Jackson-Madison County in West Tennessee. And while I'm not going to dwell on Blue Oval City, the Ford Motor Company will definitely have an impact on the games we play. The impact will come with the growth in population. According to the consider Spring Hill. According to the 1990 census, Spring Hill, which is south of Nashville, finally passed the 1,000 mark for the first time. The population had reached 1,464. Why is this significant? Well, Spring Hill became the home of Saturn, now General Motors, and 30 years later, according to the 2020 census, depending on the numbers that you look at, the numbers can range from 40,000 to 50,711. Families will move into this region, Jackson, Memphis, even, let's say, northern Mississippi, South Haven, and Olive Branch, who have children participating in sports we may have heard of, but may not be that familiar with. And they will look for schools that offer what their children are participating in. While football, basketball, baseball, soccer, softball, tennis, track and field, golf, and volleyball will remain popular, I'm thinking it will be soccer, which has been with us for a while, will continue to see an uptick in participation. While I don't think anyone in 1972 saw soccer headed this way, girls began playing soccer in the fall of 1986, followed by their first state title game the same year. Boys began playing the same school year, but their first season and first state championship game played was during the spring semester of 1987. Even 35 years later, soccer still has the potential to grow. But if I could pinpoint one sport I believe that is on the horizon for Jackson, West Tennessee, I believe that sport is going to be lacrosse. There are 43 high schools that offer lacrosse in Tennessee right now. There's more than that. But the boys and girls teams, they offer both boys and girls. There are 43 schools. Add another 20 all-girls schools, and the total is headed towards 70. So it's no wonder Matthew Gillespie, who is the Assistant Executive Director of the TSSAA, told me lacrosse is one of the fastest growing sports in the state. Of the 43 schools that offer lacrosse for boys and girls, 11 are in Memphis. And what's interesting about it is 4 of those schools, Arlington, Bartlett, Collierville, and Houston High School, are public high schools. While Memphis University School began playing lacrosse first in Shelby County, the athletic director at Briarcrest Christian told me that lacrosse, what he calls football on a stick, is the fastest growing activity at Briarcrest Christian School. If you're wondering how Briarcrest came to field a lacrosse team, I was told by a parent of a student who plays lacrosse at the school. There are parents, they were transferred into Memphis for their work, and they played the game in college. For instance, several people played at the Air Force Academy who now live and work in Memphis. If a school has a football stadium or a soccer field, its lacrosse team would have a venue to call home. That's an image that you just put that out on a football field. Of course, it's the lines, whatever. But the equipment that says football, but most noticeable, a helmet and shoulder pads. But players use a stick with a basket that is called a crosse, C-R-O-S-S-E, that is used, as Dan mentioned, to try and to catch and pass a hard rubber ball to teammates while trying to score a goal on what looks like a smaller version of a soccer goal. Again, speaking with Matthew Gillespie of the TSSAA, he said there is a movement to get the sport of lacrosse sanctioned as a TSSAA event. And one sport that has been sanctioned by the TSSAA that could be in Jackson-Madison County's future is wrestling, and not just for boys. Believe it or not, there are about 100 schools in this state right now that have both boys and girls wrestling teams, boys and girls. There are only 4 in this region. That would be Germantown, Munford, Bartlett, and Cordova that currently have teams. Another sport that I would say, another sport that I think that's headed this way is an organization, the Tennessee Titans, started a program in Williamson County for flag football for girls. It's not statewide, but the Tennessee Titans want to see this activity expand. They're putting money into it. And if I were a betting man, I think that's going to happen. A couple of sports I'm thinking might be a stretch as far as new sports for Jackson and Madison County would include field hockey, pickleball, and rugby, which the TSSAA told me no interest has been generated, even though they said 4.8 million participants nationwide are playing pickleball, and it has had a growth over the last 2 years of 39.3%. Rugby is a sport, I really don't see this one. I can't see it. Because if kids are reluctant to play football because it's too physical, the game of rugby is equally physical with less equipment. An event we might want to look into in the future to bring to Jackson is Spring Fling. Spring Fling was held last week, May 24th through the 27th, in the Murfreesboro, Rutherford County area to decide state champions in baseball, softball, soccer, tennis, and track and field. I spoke with the Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce, and they told me that the economic impact of Spring Fling is $3.5 million. The Chamber said over a 4-day period, some 30,000 people visited the Murfreesboro, Rutherford County area. And Jackson applied for this event in the 1990s, but obviously was not selected. There's only 2 criteria, which I found kind of interesting. The TSSAA told me that one is they open bids. The other is they extend an existing contract. So I figure that now we are prepared because we have the facilities, the restaurants, and the hotels, and all they can do is say no. Why not contact the TSSAA and simply ask them, what do we need to do to host this event? I have one final thought. For me, it's not if, but when we see area high schools and who knows colleges add new activities to the roster of sports. Perhaps lacrosse, wrestling, or girls flag football. But overall, the majority of sports we now enjoy, as I mentioned, football, basketball, and baseball and the like, they will remain the same. But there will be some new kids on the block in the future. And eventually, some athletes excelling in these sports will gain induction into this organization only in the future. Thank you again. I enjoyed it.
Oh, excellent. Thank you both, Dan and Dave. You've taken us on a journey from the beginning of history in Jackson and all the way up to the modern times and given us a lot to look forward to. Just on a personal note, I have to just say that my husband, Daryl Christian, was executive with Procter & Gamble, and he was on PG1 going up to Cincinnati to knock on the door to say, hey, how about sponsoring Pringles Park? And was one of the original private citizens that invested. And so we're so proud to have Dennis and Steve with us today, excited about the future for the Prospect League and the ballpark, but just so much appreciate the Sports Hall of Fame and the recognition that you give and keeping our athletes in the forefront of our imagination and what possibilities that we can have of the kids that grow up here and the hope that they have. If I didn't thank Andrew for the food, I need to because he's awesome. So thank you, Andrew, and the church again for hosting us. We'll be back on July the 8th with J.R. Ross talking about healthcare. We've got our events going on. We need more folks to help us with the choir. So those of you who sing, please let us know. And we are adjourned. And thank you for being with us today.
Tired of internet that leaves you waiting and monitoring your usage with extra fees? Switch to E+ Broadband from the Jackson Energy Authority for fiber optic internet with the fastest speeds to keep everyone connected. Enjoy being online as much as you want without worrying about extra fees or data usage limits. Perfect for when you need to download and upload large files, stream videos, or use your favorite video conferencing app. E+ Broadband, fastest internet, no data caps, no slowdowns, no worries.
Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like to have my seat?
R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.